Welcome back to Viewpoint. I'm James Zogby. My next guest is Caroline Frederickson. She's director of the Washington Legislative Office of the American Civil Liberties Union, serves as the ACLU's top lobbyist, and leads its federal lobbying efforts. Former Chief of Staff to U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell, and served as Special Assistant to the President for Legislative Affairs during the Clinton administration. Thanks for joining us.
What a pleasure to be here.
Before we talk about FISA, which I do want to talk about, I want to talk about this proposed new Justice Department policy that would permit the FBI to data mine public records to build a profile of terrorist suspects. And it obviously caused a whole lot of concern because of the fact that they would be not only data mining, which I think raises a whole lot of questions for a lot of us, but that ethnic profiling and the use of ethnicity and religion would be a part of the profile that they would construct. Let me just put up a couple quotes about it, because I got it actually from an ACLU letter. I put them up on the screen right now. One is from John Ashcroft, and the other is from Mr. Mueller, the head of the FBI, and they make comments about ethnic profiling. Ashcroft said, using race as a proxy for potential criminal behavior is unconstitutional, undermines law enforcement by undermining confidence people can have in law enforcement. And then this is Director Mueller. I acknowledge racial profiling is abhorrent to the Constitution. It is abhorrent in any way, shape, or form, but now they're going to use it.
That's right.
What's this about?
Well, this is a really offensive policy that we understand that the Attorney General is promulgating. These are new guidelines that will tell the FBI how different agents can initiate a national security investigation. And formerly, as you'd expect from law enforcement, they could not open an investigation unless they had a basis for it, unless there was some suspicion of a possible illegal act about to happen in order to prevent something, a crime. Now, all of a sudden, they've been given the green light to use profiling, that is to use data about people that's not related to any activity, that's not related to any potential illegal act, but could be so little as somebody's ethnicity, somebody's race, somebody's religion, and perhaps coupled with a few other traits like, did you travel to Pakistan, and are you a Pakistani American?
Say I'm a Pakistani American or Lebanese American, veteran, U.S. military. I go visit family. Do I expect to get the visit when I come home?
Possibly. It's certainly possible under these guidelines. And I think
how much do we know about the guidelines? Other than the AP article, have we seen anything yet?
We have not seen them yet. And the interesting thing is that this is yet another example of this administration promulgating really problematic, potentially illegal policies, doing it in the dark. And the only way we find out about it is because some very good reporter digs it out and tells the public. And that's what happened here. And the reporter was basically told she couldn't have the guidelines if she was going to go forward with telling the story.
Will they have to show them to the public before they implement them?
They're not public documents, but Congress can get, members of Congress can get their hands on these documents, and we're very hopeful that they will. There's already been some interest expressed. Attorney General Mukasey was in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday and was asked very pointedly about this issue by Senator Feingold, and he did not deny that these guidelines are going forward. He said that it wouldn't be based on a single trait. That is, if you happen to be a Catholic or Muslim or a Buddhist, that alone. But if you are a Buddhist and you happen to want to travel to Tibet, those two things perhaps could be enough.
Let's talk about the FISA legislation. One of the things that baffles me most is after all the whooping and yelling about warrantless wiretapping 2 years ago, and calls for hearings and demands of all sorts on the administration, they turn around and just absolve the administration of the whole thing and pass it, giving the president pretty much what he wanted. How did this happen?
Well,
what turned it around?
It's very interesting because you would think that after the story came out about what seems to be very clearly illegal activity by this administration authorized by President Bush, there was a big brouhaha, as you said. Congress was mad. People demanded hearings, and they said they were going to get to the bottom of it and hold people accountable. Well, President Bush, one of the things that he has been masterful at, perhaps he learned it from his advisor, Karl Rove, is how to take a weakness and turn it into a strength. And what he did was he turned the tables on the Democrats. And once the program had been discovered, he said it had to exist. As if that, just because he was doing it, made it necessary. And the Democrats, unfortunately, and clearly the Republicans in Congress, bought into that. And all of a sudden, the arguments became, if you roll back what the president did illegally, you're soft on terrorism. And the sad fact is that we have a president who is the most unpopular president in history. He is in his last months in office, a lame duck of the most classic kind. He was still able to get the Democrats to capitulate, and given not only on the very expansive wiretapping powers that the executive branch now has, but also on immunity for the phone companies that participated.
The weird thing about that, if I might, is that we're giving them immunity for something we still don't know what they did.
Exactly.
Because we don't even know yet how warrantless wiretapping worked.
It's very true, and I think what sort of sums up the bizarre nature of how Congress approached this issue was Senator Specter made this point on the floor during the debate. He said, we can't give these companies immunity because we don't know in Congress what's happened. Very few of us have been briefed, and even those people don't really understand the program. And then he turned around and voted for the bill. So that there's a level of complicity with members of Congress. They are making it extremely difficult for us to know what really happened.
You're coming in at the end of the show right now, but this is a topic that I want to explore, and I know that our viewers want to explore, this and the profiling. Could you come back next week?
I would love to.
I want to do that, and I want to go through the FISA bill and the profiling, if we could.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much here that I think we need to understand, especially in an election year. It ought to be a critical issue we debate.
Absolutely, and I'd just like to say that we could talk about the lawsuit that ACLU filed today immediately upon the signing of the bill.
I do want to know if there's a direction to go. I also want to know what recourse individual citizens have if they feel that they're being tapped or if they feel that they've been profiled in some way.
Well, I would love to do that.
I would like to have you come back next week. So that's all the time we've got right now, but we're going to start the show next week with Caroline, and I'll see you next week. Stay tuned for Viewpoint coming up next week with Caroline, and we're going to talk about FISA and profiling.